Somewhere, right now, in a quiet museum vault, a stone sits behind glass, harmless, silent, beautiful. But every person who ever owned it died in ways that should not have been possible. A king, a princess, a soldier, all connected to the same stone, all destroyed by it. That is just one of the 7 curses you're about to hear. Because across the world, in tombs sealed for thousands of years, people wrote warnings, not poetry, warnings. And in at least 7 documented cases, those warnings came true. Stay until the end, because the final curse on this list has never been broken. The tomb has never even been found. Let's begin. Number 1. The Curse of Tutankhamun's Tomb, Egypt, 1922. For years, archaeologist Howard Carter had searched the Valley of the Kings, funded by Lord Carnarvon, finding nothing, until his workers uncovered a staircase buried under centuries of sand, leading down to a sealed door stamped with royal seals, unbroken for 3,000 years. Weeks later, Carnarvon arrived. Carter chipped a small hole into the door, held up a candle, and peered inside. Behind him, Carnarvon asked the question that would echo through history. "Can you see anything?" Carter's answer became legend. Yes, wonderful things. Inside was the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun, untouched since antiquity. Gold, statues, a death mask that would become one of the most famous objects on Earth. But less than 2 months later, Carnarvon nicked a mosquito bite while shaving. The cut became infected, spread into his bloodstream, and within days, he was dead. Legend says the lights of Cairo went dark at the exact moment he died. And back in England, his dog howled once and dropped dead too. Over a dozen people connected to the excavation died in the years that followed, and the press called it the Curse of the Pharaohs. Strangely, Howard Carter himself, the man who broke the seal, lived for another 16 years without incident, and never once believed in the curse he had helped make famous. Number 2. The Curse of Tamerlane's Tomb, Uzbekistan, 1941. In Samarkand stood the tomb of Timur, known to the West as Tamerlane, one of history's most feared conquerors. Carved into the slab covering his grave was a warning. "Whoever disturbs my rest will unleash an invader more terrible than I." For over 500 years, no one dared test it. Then, in June of 1941, Soviet archaeologists opened the tomb anyway, removing his remains for study. 2 days later, before dawn on June 22nd, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa. Over 3 million German soldiers crossed into Soviet territory in a single night, the largest invasion in the history of warfare. It became one of the bloodiest fronts of the entire war, and for months, it looked as though the Soviet Union might fall entirely. As losses mounted, whispers of the curse spread through the ranks. In November of 1942, Soviet officials reburied Tamerlane with full Islamic funeral rites, exactly as tradition demanded. Weeks after the reburial, the tide of the war began, for the first time, to turn. Historians call it coincidence. The legend calls it cause and effect. Number 3. The Hope Diamond Curse. A deep blue diamond over 45 carats, said to be stolen from a temple statue's eye in India. The French merchant who allegedly stole it was soon after said to have been torn apart by wild dogs abroad, the first name on a list that would only grow longer. The diamond made its way into French royal hands, reaching Queen Marie Antoinette, who was later executed during the French Revolution, losing her head to the guillotine. The stone resurfaced years later, passing through bankers and aristocrats. Nearly every owner reported the same pattern: sudden bankruptcy, public scandal, suicides, entire family fortunes collapsing within a generation. By the 20th century, the diamond's reputation was so fearsome that jeweler Harry Winston wanted nothing to do with its story. In 1958, he wrapped it in plain brown paper and mailed it through ordinary registered post to the Smithsonian Institution. It arrived safely and remains there today, sealed behind reinforced glass, having quietly outlived everyone who ever tried to possess it. Number 4. The Curse of King Casimir IV, Poland, 1973. Inside the crypt of Wawel Cathedral, 12 archaeologists opened the sealed 15th century tomb of King Casimir IV. Within weeks, 4 of them were dead. Within a few years, 10 of the 12 who entered that tomb were gone. Polish newspapers declared the curse of the pharaohs had crossed continents and found its way to Poland. But this time, science had an answer. Sealed inside that airless chamber for 5 centuries were spores of a toxic mold, Aspergillus flavus, strong enough to trigger fatal reactions in weakened immune systems. For 500 years, that mold sat undisturbed in total darkness. The instant the tomb was cracked open, spores filled the air the entire team was breathing. So was it a curse or biology 5 centuries in the making? Perhaps in the end it was both. Number 5. The Curse of the Ring of Silvianus, Roman Britain, 4th century. At a temple in Lydney Park, England, a man named Silvianus had his gold ring stolen. Furious, he inscribed a curse onto a lead tablet, naming a suspect called Senicianus, and asked the gods to withhold that man's health until the ring was returned. That tablet was buried and forgotten for over 1,500 years. Then, in the late 1700s, at a completely different location, a gold ring turned up in the soil, engraved with that exact name. Historians now believe it may be the very ring described on the curse tablet and the very thief it was written against. Decades later, a young Oxford linguist named J.R.R. Tolkien was consulted about the inscriptions found at that same site. Many Tolkien scholars now believe this story. A stolen ring, a furious curse, a thief named across time, helped plant the seed for one of the most famous objects in all of fiction. One ring that would one day rule them all. Number 6. The Curse of the Delhi Purple Sapphire, India, 1857. During the Indian Rebellion, a British soldier looted a temple in Cawnpore, taking a deep purple gemstone, later named the Delhi Purple Sapphire, though it's actually amethyst. He brought it back to England, and almost immediately his life fell apart. Financial catastrophe, failing health, misfortune that never seemed to end. When the stone passed to family members after his death, the pattern didn't stop. Every new owner reported the same sequence: illness, ruin, sudden death. Eventually it reached a scientist named Edward Heron Allen, who was so unnerved by its history that he wrote it all down, then sealed the stone in 7 nested boxes, with strict instructions not to open it until 3 years after his death. Today, the Delhi Purple Sapphire sits in London's Natural History Museum, alongside his own letters describing his fear of the very stone glowing behind the glass beside them. Number 7. The Curse of Genghis Khan's Tomb, Mongolia. This is the only curse on this list never tested by modern hands, because the tomb itself has never been found. When Genghis Khan died in the year 1227, having built the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever known, his followers took extraordinary steps to protect his final resting place. Legend says the funeral procession killed everyone they encountered along the route, so no witness could ever reveal the location. Then the soldiers who buried him were executed by a second group, who were executed by a third, sworn to secrecy and never seen again. Some accounts even claim a nearby river was deliberately diverted to flow across the burial site, erasing any trace of the grave beneath the current. In the 8 centuries since, despite satellite imaging and dozens of well-funded international expeditions, not a single confirmed trace of the tomb has ever been located. The warning still stands. Whoever finds it will unleash a catastrophe far greater than anything the conqueror himself ever inflicted upon the world. And so 800 years later, it remains exactly where his followers intended, hidden, untouched, waiting. Whichever it was, maybe it's best, We never find out the rest. Subscribe.